Previously, I shared the challenges and despair I faced in my toxic marriage, feeling like a frog trapped at the bottom of a well. The question of how to escape the well constantly lingered in my mind, but I was too weak, physically and mentally, unable to gather my courage and strength to take any action. The other part of me wanted to give my abuser a chance to accept the reality that his behavior was not normal, and in his sober moments, convincing to seek help. Little did I realize, people do not change unless they want to. However, it took me several years to understand toxic abusers who don't want to change for the sake of their spouses, children's welfare, or own sanity do not deserve more time, more than 2 to 3 chances. I would say just 2 is good. Living in a social milieu where life is governed by social expectations, I faced the harsh reality a married woman without a husband was vulnerable to societal judgment and harassment. At one time, when I had only my daughter, my parents, who were very supportive, told me out of concern to take divorce and get remarried, and they should adopt my 6 months old daughter. I was merely 24 years old. It felt like another trap to me, a barter. You get remarried and we will take your daughter. My lifeline. I could not think of giving away my daughter, even if it was to be adopted by my own parents. And with such a gory experience with one man, how could I think of another in my life? I started to work to earn some money to look after my daughter while staying with my parents, but soon faced sexual harassment in the hands of my very boss. And sure, there existed more vultures in the male-dominated workplace that were ready to prey. The physical harassment culminated into mental and emotional stress, and I soon was back with my abuser when he visited and pleaded with promises of changing his behavior. "Give me one last chance," he said in tears. And I caved in. He will be the only one to harass me now, I thought to myself. The twin boys arrived shortly thereafter, but the atrocities never stopped, rather increased with each cycle. The Lord did not protect me or my children from the wrath of a violent man. I contemplated taking divorce, but the male-dominated legal machinery could not fathom a woman standing in court asking for divorce, especially for a reason which was petty, ridiculous, and unheard of in their eyes. I was told then what if he gets drunk? Show us the law which says a man cannot drink. Madam, there is no law which says the husband cannot beat his wife. On more than one occasion, I was told by these law protectors, it's a household matter, you should sort it out inside the home. Why do you want to bring it outside of your 4 walls? Madam, it will take many years for the final proceedings. Why do you want to be ridiculed and harassed in the court of law and looked down upon? The divorce attorneys told me that if you are lucky to get the divorce within 2 to 5 years, your children will be divided between the 2 parents. 1 or 2 or all could go to him if he proves infidelity on your part. Giving away even one of my 3 children to an alcoholic, violent man who could not take his own responsibility, take care of himself, be it their father, was effusively unacceptable to me. I was disheartened and broken inside, and out by the legal system's bias against women. That left me feeling hopeless and completely trapped at least till the children turned 18. My spouse's behavior changed to worse and more intense with the knowledge that I was visiting attorneys. The cycle of abuse, atypical of an alcoholic, abusive narcissist, became more frequent with less time lapses. A phase of manipulation, love bombing, instigation, and explosion. This left me utterly traumatized. My worry for the children's upbringing in this toxic environment was killing me. He often told me he will follow me wherever I go. He threatened that he would kill himself if I left him and will leave a suicide note behind as a proof of abetment to suicide by me and my parents. I feared the threats were genuine, and at one time he proved it, that it was not a threat. For me, the walls of the prison were becoming higher and my space in the solitary confinement that I was in more confined, and life seemed impossible. But for my children. However, my faith in universe and higher power never deterred. Awakening of a tigress happened, and here I would like to share a particular episode which changed the direction of my tumultuous journey. It's an interesting turn of my life. I'm going to read directly from my memoir, Leaving, which got published last year. So listen till the end. One evening, dispirited and limp, I stood outside on my parents' veranda, clutching the twins tightly to my chest, my daughter clinging to my legs. My abuser had fought with me and ran out in his flip-flops, shouting over his shoulder that he wasn't coming back. My parents were unaware of this as they were inside. Standing outside on the veranda was a way to let go of my agony out in the open, away from my parents' peaceful house. I was suffocating and choking. When will these atrocities end, oh God? When will you look at me? I always thought I was your blessed child and you my father. So how can you see me suffering in the hands of this man? How can you see me in so much anguish and pain? I stood there still, gazing at the sky turning grey and black from the evening to night. And then I felt a shadow at the back of my neck. I turned to find a woman by the fence between my parents' house and the house next door, standing and looking at me in absolute silence. I hadn't heard her approach us. She smiled at me and I forced a smile back, still holding the twins. "You must be Mr. Bhaskar's daughter," she asked. I nodded. She introduced herself, then asked, "Are you all right? You look sad." The dam of tears waiting to burst broke and I let them flow. She was beautiful with big eyes, jet black curly hair, and her face glowed under the light filtering from the street pole. She was probably in her mid to late 40s. She said she was visiting India from the United Kingdom and staying in her brother's vacant apartment to rest before leaving the next day. With boys on my both arms, I could not even wipe my tears. I shared my plight with her. She listened carefully. "But you seem like an educated girl to me." I nodded. I nodded again. "So why do you continue to live with him?" I continued to be quiet. I had no answer. My eyes cast down. "The first step towards your survival is to stop the self-pity and become financially independent," she said with an assertive tone. "But how can I go to work with 3 little children?" "Those are excuses. You have to stop making excuses and start to take action for the sake of your 3 children and yourself. Do whatever it takes. Put them to daycare, go to work, Money will bring you confidence and make you self-reliant. And then you can decide on whether to leave the man or not. She wished me good luck, patted the children from across the fence, and returned to her brother's house. I had goosebumps. Her words touched my heart as if I'd been waiting for her to come in my life to show me the direction. All these years, and no one had spoken those words in such a direct voice to me, including my own parents. No one had put me on that path so far. She must have been an angel sent in response to me beseeching Him, the Lord. I contemplated on her words and felt an instant change entering my body. I heard me saying to myself, "You're an educated and employable. You had always been a confident girl, the pride of your parents and teachers. Why have you become a vegetable? Where is the girl who was a feminist during her college days, who signed papers against the dowry system and against violence of women? Where is that girl?" I had a sudden rush of adrenaline pumping into my blood. I walked back into the house with the children and asked my mom to watch them. I locked myself in the bathroom and let the non-stop warm tears wash away the victim in me. Then, when I was left with no more tears, I splashed water on my face, looked into the mirror, and raised my chin. I straightened my limp spine, stood erect with a long neck, and ran my fingers through my lengthy disheveled hair, twisting them into a neat bun. I picked up the eye pencil and applied coal to line my eyes to pour some life into them. My inner voice said, "You can do this. You are certainly capable of doing this." The image in the mirror echoed back at me. I can do this. I certainly have the capability to do this. My master's words resonated in my heart. I had to do this for my children's sake. I then walked out of the bathroom with the fervor, head held high. Overnight, a miraculous transformation in me followed. I could feel the vibrations of the universe coming together to help me. This was the higher power who sent this angel in the form of a woman to provide me direction. I could feel my whole demeanor transforming into a tigress who can do anything to protect her cubs. Massive ball of energy, courage, and willpower seeped into the transitioning tigress. It was all happening in a flicker of a moment. It was all magical. I resolved that night to get back to my old authentic self, fighting for my rights and making my own decisions. The fierce and confident Kanchan was back. I kept myself awake and firmed up a plan that night. Mission with a strategy aligning with my end goal. I was going to achieve it by taking small steps, one by one. A mission. Time to wrap up. Already the video is quite long as I flowed with my emotions. We shall continue in the next video 4 titled Creating a Roadmap Towards Freedom. So I'm going to continue with that and tell you how I created that roadmap. People do not change unless they want to. Waiting for them to change is a futile exercise. This is one precious life. We need to live this free and not isolated in a trap. Decide either way and quick. Do not waste a moment. It's not worth giving your abuser the honor and the first or the second or the third chance unless he seeks help. The journey of the toxic situation requires immense courage, strength, and 100% commitment. Not less than 100 is the rule. Taking the first step, no matter how daunting, is essential. whether it is stepping out of the four walls and speaking up, reporting the harassment, or making the decision. Action is the key here. Even in the darkest times, there is a hope for transformation. Believe in your ability to change your circumstances and create a better future for yourself and your family. Call to action. Kindly reflect on your experiences and share them in comments. What was the most inspiring part of today's story for you? What advice would you give to someone who's struggling to find their way out of a difficult situation? I'd love to hear your tips and strategies. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and stay tuned till next Wednesday. Let's walk this path together, one step at a time, creating a supportive and engaging community. Join my Facebook group, Women Warrior Club, and share your story. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.